of the truckers and his criticisms of them. Some of the most interesting things that we heard was that, oh, these truckers are a bunch of racist white supremacists. And here you are as an Indian woman, and you said that you felt safe and comfortable and that people were nice and kind and welcoming. You didn't see any of those kind of attitudes that the media were trying to tell us about the truckers. So you really did outstanding work. I'm wondering if you could just sort of tell us about why you approached the trucker convoy so differently than everybody else in the media or so many other people in the media in Ottawa.
Well, several different things. So I approached it as a resident of the city, as someone who's just very curious about what was happening in my neighborhood. And I had heard about the convoy before it even arrived. I'd heard about, I read about some of the key players and what Justin Trudeau said about the unvaccinated and the protesters. So I was aware of all of this, the narrative that was already in place before the protesters even showed up. And I was just really intellectually curious to see what was happening in Ottawa. So I walked around and I spent about 8 or 9 hours that day in the bitter cold, and I saw something extraordinary. I saw people. It was people of different backgrounds. It was like Canada Day in the winter. It felt like a winter carnival. I saw some diversity in the crowds as well, and it was just a very, very, it was a joy. It was joyous. It was almost cathartic for a lot of people to be there. People who, we'd been under a lockdown for 2 years, under restrictions for 2 years, where many of us couldn't even see our loved ones, and suddenly there was this explosion of emotions right here in the nation's capital, and that too in some very, very cold conditions. And that to me indicated that people were there because they were really committed to the cause. They were really dedicated to it, and they really believed in it, and they were willing to spend hours on end to make their voices heard. And by the end of that, I came home, and I tweeted saying, I think the elites in this country, the political establishment, the media establishment, have really misjudged what is happening here. This is much bigger than anything anyone expected. It was bigger than anything I had expected. So for me, it was an eye-opening experience. And also, what was interesting was that that first weekend, I got a lot of messages from some of my journalist friends who work for very well-known publications, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, and they were trying to understand what was happening in Ottawa. They asked me, why is there no actual on-the-ground reportage of what is happening in Ottawa? It seems pretty big, but all we keep hearing is that there are a bunch of white supremacists and they're being caricatured. Where are the stories? Where's the actual on-the-ground reportage? And I was, really struck by that question, because everything that we had that was being reported on, if you can even call it that, was just someone's opinion, or uh, uh, just talking from just directly from the Justin Trudeau's talking points. But yet there were all of these people with very interesting stories. They'd come, they driven